So, like I was telling you earlier, I felt like I was going to make these videos for our YouTube channel for our groups. And so I figured I might as well just invite anybody that wants some information and wants to know what we're up to, and they can follow along. And we've got people in other markets, so it was easier for me to do these on Zoom than it was. Obviously, I can't do it in person and have like Cynthia, who's in California, and some of those guys tuning in. So, like I was saying at the very beginning, we're going to do three different budgets, if you will. And each week we're going to pick one that is something that you can do for free in your business. And then we're going to do one that it's going to cost you a little bit of money, but in the grand scheme of running a business, it's still a pretty frugal spend. And then one that we're going to call full-fledged. So it's going to be a little bit of a higher investment bracket than the first two. So probably $1,000 plus. Um, I know I'm gonna pick on Julie tonight when we talk about the first one, whether she likes it or not. But
That's
the
okay.
first thing that I wanted to talk about was the free side of things. So one of the things that I have done that I have had the best results off of is posting on Facebook Marketplace and posting in the buy, sell, and trade pages. I think every type of marketing works if you do it consistently. So this is one that I have preached through the years that it's something that you need to do daily in order to really see the results. But Julie has done this. And Julie, if you could share a little bit about what your results have been and how often you're posting and that sort of stuff, and then I'll kind of go through my my script, if you will, and some pro tips on it after.
You mean like the Facebook Marketplace stuff?
So when I first told you to do this, what were your thoughts?
I was excited because I didn't know anybody here.
Right. Yeah, super important if you're just getting started and you'd been an agent in Colorado,
Mhm.
but didn't have a sphere of influence here in town.
Nope.
Did you think it would work?
Um, I don't
No.
know. I was so excited. I probably didn't. It's all I could think of was, yeah, I don't know. I mean, I didn't think anything would work at that time. But then again, I mean, you sat there and you showed us the receipts on your phone going, I had 40 people you sign into my, oh, it wasn't Lofty at the time, it was KB
KB
Core.
Core. Hmm.
Yeah, I just had 40 people sign in looking for this, and like 10 of them have asked me questions about it, and I'm like, well, shit, okay, let's
Right.
let's give it a shot. And that was the very first uh closing that I had in Kansas was from that. I had to cultivate. I mean, I nurtured that one for 6 months because he was waiting for a settlement, but we closed it 6 months later. That was my very first. I've closed four Facebook Marketplace leads, and I am just working with another one now. I
How
just closed
often,
one days ago.
how often are you posting?
And well, probably once or twice a week because I've been trying to focus on that listing that I have right now to get it sold. But I mean, I posted Larry Hall's listing that he's got over there for 275, and I showed it today to a gal who asked me a question. So,
So I know we've got a brand new agent that's on here. The rest of you guys all have some level of experience. Everybody's a little different, but for those of you that aren't aware, you can post houses in the buy, sell, and trade pages. If you're not in the Wichita market, or if you're at a brokerage, you probably need to ask your broker what their guidelines are. But I'm just going to give you my experience and what our brokerage allows us to do. So as a brand new agent, or as Julie that's coming into our market, even with some agent experience, but not a sphere in Wichita or listings in Wichita, she was posting other people's listings. Even just what she was saying there, she's posting a listing from another one of our agents here in Wichita, and she's sharing his listing, and she's picking up and generating leads and engagement off of other people's listings. So I'm going to do a quick screen share here with you guys so that you can see a quick sample of what it is that shows up when I do this. And this was exactly what I was showing Julie when we started. So I pick a house, and I do think that it matters what houses that you pick. So I don't pick anything that, like in our Wichita market, for me to advertise a house that's $1 million, you're going to get a ton of looky-loos. You're probably not going to get a ton of serious interest because that is just way above our average price point. So I think if you can keep it in that average price point, so 350 or less, that's where you're really going to have a lot of interest and pick up the most amount of leads. The other things that I look for when I'm posting these things is I'm looking for something that has professional photos, because most people do not read this, and most of your friends do not read this. All they're looking at is they're seeing that you've listed something for sale on Marketplace, and they think that it's your listing. So I don't want my listings to be represented with poor photos, even though this one isn't mine. They're going to assume that. And so I want to make sure that they have good photos. So the next thing that I'm looking for is I'm looking for something that's interesting. So something that stands out in Wichita is, like, let's just say that you've got a $200,000 house, but it has a 4-car garage. That's something unique and it will stand out. Something with an in-ground pool, something in a desirable school district or something like that. So you can see the sample of what I put out here. These 3 little ellipses right here, that just means I posted 3 pictures. So if you've heard me talk about buy, sell, and trade before, you've heard me use the analogy that I'm not giving them all of the information. I'm not giving it up on the first date. We're going to give them a couple of photos. And then down here, we go in this middle section under description, we're going to give them 3 bullet points. We're not going to write a paragraph about the property because nobody reads anything and they're just scrolling. All they're going to do is look at the photos. So $38,000 price drop, almost 3,000 square feet, Goddard schools. So I thought for 3,000 square feet for only 320, that's a pretty good buy. I mean, that's $100-ish a square foot. So for more details and photos, click this homes link. So a couple of tips on this. Do not use a Zillow link. We'll get into Zillow at the end of it, and you'll understand why when I get into the end of it. So we're just going to keep on topic with this in the free category. But make sure that you are using a link that goes to a website that is for you. If you have a CRM that will lead capture, that's even 1,000 times better. But we don't want to send anybody out to any other websites where they're going to potentially land in another agent's lap. I also try to keep these where they're not going to be open. If I'm posting a house on Friday, I don't want it to have an open house on Saturday or Sunday, because I don't want them going to that open house and making friends with whoever that agent is, and then I lost the lead. So if you're seeing what I've got posted here, it says at the very end of my link, I just kind of blur it all together, but it's there. Listed by Amanda Treadwell, Keller Williams Signature Partners. You have to disclose if it is not your listing. You have to disclose if it is your listing. So anytime you're advertising, make sure that you have whoever's listing it is and your information here. Now, do not tag the agent. I've seen that before. I'm like, you're sending them right to that agent's Facebook page. But make sure that you have their name and their brokerage on there. If you're in a different state, make sure that you're following whatever that protocol is or different MLSs. But then to schedule your time to see this home, call or text. My brokerage, my name, my phone number. So the whole thing with this and what I've been teaching to our agents is all you want them to do is click on that link, because that link is going to force them to register into your CRM. So it's capturing the leads. And a lot of times what happens is people do not want to give their information. And so they're going to ask a question publicly, or they're going to private message you, is this available? I just respond back, and I have this a lot of times on copy and paste. Yes, it is. Would you like to schedule a time to see it? I have absolutely zero conversation with them about qualifying them, money, payments, price, nothing. My whole point is face-to-face contact with whoever is messaging me with this. And the people that avoid registering are usually the ones that I close the easiest because I'm creating that rapport. So a couple of things that I want to give you on this is if somebody responds to this on, you're posting it on Marketplace, you're going to also attach it to 20 other buy, sell, and trade pages. So if you're not a member of multiple buy, sell, and trade pages, you need to be. And when you're looking at those, you need to look at the ones that have the highest population for the page. So like, for instance, on ours, there will be Wichita buy, sell, and trade, Andover buy, sell, and trade, Sedgwick County classifieds. You can go through and just come up with things in your mind, get creative, type it in. There's probably a page there for it. But a lot of these have 20,000 upwards to 120,000, at least in our market. Some bigger cities will probably have some that are bigger. But those are the ones you can make one ad, a marketplace, and attach it to 20 other pages so that one ad goes out to all of these different groups. So you're doing that. And then as people are responding and they're not wanting to register, they're going to start asking you, how many bedrooms? So the pro tip on this is do not respond publicly to how many bedrooms. Just say, I PM'd you and take it offline and be like, hey, Julie, this house has 2 bedrooms. How many bedrooms are you needing? And then Julie's going to start a conversation with you and she's going to say, well, I actually need 4. I've got 2 little girls, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, great. So are you specifically looking for something in Goddard School District? And then you start having that conversation. And then Julie's going to tell you everything that you never wanted to know about her background and her credit and her kids and everything. And that's where the money is at. So if you're commenting, and I screwed this up so bad in the beginning, I thought if I just responded instantly and said 2, that was what was going to be the ticket. But what happens is when you respond 2 and somebody needed 3 or 4 or more, if they're scanning through the questions, they scroll past and they never had a conversation with you. So sometimes on these, I'll put 0 down bank financing available. It could be a rural development loan. It could just be that there's grant money available or whatever. And it never fails. People will message and they say, what's my credit score have to be? I PM'd you. And then I ask them, I don't even tell them necessarily what their credit score has to be. Do you have any idea what your credit score is? And then all of a sudden, again, they tell you everything you never wanted to know, that the baby daddy did this or they had this health issue. And then you can start building rapport and start having that conversation. And if there's a lot of issues, the best bet, send them to the lender first. Send them to the credit person second. But to get the conversation rolling, have the conversations offline on private message on Facebook and not on the social feed of it. Now, the messages that you want to have on the social feed of it is going to be, thanks for the tag. Thanks for sharing the information. And the reason that you want to do that is because every time that there's a response on your post, it keeps popping it back up at the top of the classifieds. So you want the engagement on there. If somebody says it's a nice house, oh, I know, right? I love the kitchen. Make a comment to them. But the questions that are specific to the house, take them offline. Now, another thing, like Teresa I saw was on here, Kara, they've got listings right now. And one thing that I will do, and I think this is higher level, is let's just say that I know I've got a house coming up next week in Regency Lakes. So Northeast Wichita, we're going to list it at $340,000. I am going to start looking for houses that are similar to that. And I'm going to start advertising those on the buy, sell, and trade pages and Facebook Marketplace to start picking up leads and interest for my own listing. This is something that I have a conversation with my sellers at my listing appointment. And I tell them, I'm going to start working on generating leads for your listing before we're even ready to list your house. Because those of you that have experience in this industry, you know that getting that sneak peek and getting them in early, That's where the money is at, because that's how you can hold the value on your listings. I have that happening right now on the property in Regency Lakes that I'm gonna be listing. So I've got somebody that's gonna look at it actually before it even hits the market, and we'll see where it plays out from there. But if nothing else, with that, that buyer now knows that I know of stuff before it hits the market. And so they want to be loyal to you for that sneak preview of whatever you know, because you have a pulse on the market. So the last things I'll leave you with this is, if you have a CRM, and I think CRMs are ridiculously important. I did not understand the importance of them prior to 9 years ago, which is stupid as long as I'd been in business. But when you have a CRM that's doing all this lead capture, it's so incredible, because now I've generated all these leads. I can send something out to them. Hey, grant money is now available for first-time buyers, $15,000. Hey, join me this weekend at my open house. You have a whole database of email addresses and correspondence that you can be having back and forth with these people. And since they have joined and clicked that they wanted more information and created a login, they've granted you permission to be emailing them. So once I'm in conversation with these people, as a finished follow-up to wrap this up with a bow, is I friend request them on Facebook. If I've had a lot of conversation with somebody back and forth about their credit score, and I don't even care if their credit is 320 and it's going to take them 100 years to buy a house, I'm friend requesting them. If they were vulnerable enough and we had enough of a conversation, I'm adding them to my database, which is social media, because I have literally had people that will not probably ever qualify that have sent me referrals, and I've sold their family member houses. So the nicer you are to people in general, obviously the more business you're going to have, and the more conversations you're having with people, the more business you're going to have, because it's just, sales is a numbers game. So on that, on the free topic, anybody have any questions about posting on the buy, sell, and trade, or any tips or tricks or things that they're curious about? That was easy. Okay. Next thing, frugal. And I call this driving for dollars. If I am out and showing a client houses and I see other properties that look vacant or uncared for, I write down the addresses and I send them something. And I send, where's my next little thing? Okay, you can see I purchased those in June. So I send out these cards and I handwrite them a little note. Hello, I'm out in your neighborhood. I'm showing houses to Jake and his family, and they're looking for a house in this neighborhood, and they pointed out your house. I didn't say they pointed it out for a good reason. We were just having conversation, and I tell my buyers that I'm doing it while I'm with them. Especially if they're interested in buying something that needs a little work, or they don't mind putting in a little elbow grease or some paint or something like that. I'm like, look, that one looks like it needs some love. I'm going to mail them a letter and see if we can get you a house. Because a lot of you guys know it's been nuts trying to find houses for buyers. And most of us, if we have any experience whatsoever, we've got buyers that we haven't found houses for. So I'm getting ready to list a house from this. So all I did, mailed some letters. I mailed out in the month of June when I got these cards, I mailed out probably a dozen letters. And I got one phone call, and that one phone call is going to list their house with me. And what's crazy about it is they own a bunch of other houses. And so I sat and did like a FaceTime like this with them on Zoom. I scrolled through, I showed them exactly how I pull comps, what I was showing them on their house. And I said, if you want me to do this for any of your other properties, I'm happy to do it. Like, I want you to see the pictures. I want you to know what your properties are going to have to look like in order to get to these dollar figures. Because it took them a month to call me after I mailed the letter. And by then I'd already sold Jake a different house. But when I start having the conversation with them, oh, well, I already sold him a house, but I've got several other people that are kind of looking in this price point. What's your house like? Well, we've been in the middle of redoing it. So let me look at some comps. I don't want you to overdo it. And so I just sit and I tell them and I show them via picture Look, this is what it needs to look like in order to get this dollar figure. This is all you need to do if you just want this dollar figure. And then that way they can decide what it is. But the other things that I have done, so this is super cheap. I mean, 20 cards, so it's less than $1 a card, and then plus your postage. But I have gone through and I have a buyer. I have then sent just solds out the same exact way. Hey, just wanted to let you know, like to the neighbors, like super close, like the 10 that are around one of my listings. I also send out postcards to that, and we'll get in on that on a whole different conversation, to let them know what the steps are of what we had to go through. But I send these out and I'm like, just want to let you know that you're going to be getting a new neighbor on Friday and seem like a super nice family, blah, blah, blah. If there's anything I can ever help you with in real estate, let me know. Send your business cards with it. It's really the only thing I use paper business cards for at this point, or to leave them after I show a house. That's all. And then the other funny thing about this is I have done a ton of driving for dollars when I'm looking for investment properties, whether that's for me to purchase or for other people to purchase. I will drive around if the yard's tall, if it's missing roof shingles, if it just looks abandoned, got a car up on blocks in the driveway. I'm writing them letters. And it's really easy to go into Sedgwick County's website or whatever county you're on, and you go to the tax appraiser and you can find out the mailing addresses for whoever owns them. And if they're out of state, or if they're or if they are in a different location, that makes it super easy and a potential. I mean, it's crazy some of the stuff that I've had off of this. I had the Kansas Masonic home reach out to me, and I sold multiple houses for them after I sent them one letter. And I said, hey, I've got a buyer. They're really interested in this property at 802 South Estelle. Please call me if this is something you're interested in selling. And they called, and I sold that one for them. And then I sold about a dozen other properties for them after that. The other thing I will do if I'm looking for myself as an investor, or if I'm looking for other investors, is if I have a neighborhood that I like to purchase in, or I know that my investors like to purchase in, I will go through Google Maps, and you can see, like, here's all the street names, and here's the 100 block to the 100 block. And I will start looking them up on Sedgwick County. You can put in a range on the tax assessor's website. And I start going through names, because there's not a whole lot of Normans being birthed at this point. There's not a whole lot of Mildreds that are younger people. So to me, I look at that and I'm like, this is a high possibility of an older person that's going to be in this house and potentially ready to go into assisted living, nursing home, whatever you want to call it. And so I will mail them something. Hello, I love the Woodlawn Village neighborhood, and I have a buyer that does too. We love all the character. Those, you got to appeal to their emotions a little bit more about it. And this was a house that they happened to point out to me. If this is something you're ever interested in selling, please keep my card and call me. I've had somebody keep my card for 2 years on their refrigerator before they called me off of something like this. So you look at the free thing that we did, and it's something I like it because it's instant gratification. You're making that post and people are responding at a quick rate. That's not how all marketing works. Usually marketing is more frustrating than that. You throw a whole bunch of money out into the universe and you just hope that it shows back up as an ROI in your bank account. So this is a little longer game. 2 years is the max that I've ever heard somebody saying that they kept it. But even like the first one, it was 30 days before they even called me after receiving my letter. So this is a longer shot, but it is something that there are potential in these things, because absentee owners, out-of-state owners, and older people, it churns. And so if you're just tracking it, know that. The other thing you can do on this is, if you see that, I love the database, I love Sedgwick County's database, or tax databases, because you can also see where their mailing address is on the owner. So you're sending it out to them. Well, now you're going to keep a database. So every time you have an investment property, you could mail something out to them and say, hey, thought you might want to add another property to your data to your portfolio. Here's what I'm getting ready to list. I've got like 200 people that are on a database of just investor buyers. And when I used to sell a ton of foreclosures, that was awesome because I could send out the mailer, and a lot of times I could double in my deal because, especially with foreclosures, I knew they were coming up months before they were actually hitting the market. So I think the key to a lot of what we're going to be discussing over the next several weeks is building a database and layering things up. So just because you had a one mailer conversation to it, a lot of times with mailers, especially, they're going to have to see your name multiple times and in a fairly frequent amount of time in order for them to consider doing business with you. So there is a program I've heard through different trainings. I haven't ever used it, but I know some of the title companies offer this. Cynthia just logged in, so they might have this out in California. I know our title companies don't have it, but it's called Remine. And so you can get data out of that with owners, absentee owners. It'll search a whole lot of different things and create databases for you so that you're not doing all the legwork. But when I was a brand new agent, I had a lot more time on my hands than money. And so this was the stuff that I was doing because I could sit in front of Sedgwick County's website for an hour or 2 hours and put all of the addresses and stuff together. But then as you get busier, it's great to have those databases because then I can just hit send and it goes out to everybody at once. Active Farm. Okay, so Cynthia says that they have one in there in California that they use. It's called Active Farm, and she has access to it and she's been using that. So what all are you using it for, Cynthia?
Can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay, so what I've been using it for is for golden farms to see who's all been living there as long as they've lived there. Like you can find out how long they've lived in for like 30 years or 12 years, 6 years. So you can do the golden farm, which is how much longer are they going to be in the house. So some of the records that I've been pulling up for the golden farms, it could be up to 8 years, and the turnover rate. So the turnover rate is going to be higher in some areas. So I've been doing this in Lodi and Stockton since that's where I do a lot of work. And so I can find out what the turnover rate is, and then I can find out how long that the individuals have been in their home, and then I can start sending out the mailers. I can also pay for the phone numbers, which I don't because I have Forewarn to use, but I do pay for the emails, so I can start doing the emails because that's a little cheaper than mailing it with the postcard or a stamp.
Right. And that's the thing. I mean, like I was saying earlier, it's kind of a layer. So you start out and you have a handwritten letter. The next week, maybe you send them a market analysis of what's happening in that neighborhood. Here's what's sold in the last 6 months, just in case you were curious. Or I know like our MLS sends us market stats, and you could put something together on Canva and send it out. So that's what I want you to understand about a lot of these things that we're going to discuss over the next several weeks is it's not a one-time thing and then all of a sudden your pipeline is just so freaking full that you can hardly stand it. It's a lot of repetitiveness, and it's a lot of just staying in front of the same people over and over again so that they want to eventually do business with you. They like that you're persistent. That was one of the things that I learned very early on in selling. I was calling expireds and for sell by owners, and we'll talk about that in the future weeks. But they loved the fact that I was aggressive because a lot of people aren't anymore. And they want to, if they're going to pay somebody as much as they're paying us, they want somebody that's going to go to bat. They want somebody that's going to heavily market their property, and they want somebody that's going to negotiate for them. And so they like the fact that you're staying on top of it in front of them and just inundating them almost. Now, Kelly can attest to this. Kelly has seen me receive stuff back And they have literally folded postcards in half, put it in an envelope and said, don't ever send me anything ever again. That's okay. You're going to have that. That's part of it. It's just a numbers game, like we said earlier. So every no you get, you're one no closer to a yes. On that topic, going back to the free stuff really quick, I think I might have mentioned this, but I want you guys to understand it's going to take about 100 conversations on Facebook Marketplace, buy, sell, and trade to get one closing. So I just look at it. I'm like, Josh called me the other day and he's like, how come I haven't sold anything? And Amber's already sold something and Lynn's already sold something. I said, how many conversations have you had on Facebook? 77. I said, go have 23 more. It's just numbers. And as long as you know what those numbers are, then it doesn't hurt your feelings. You're playing a game and you just have to get to 100 in order to win the princess. So keep going and keep doing it. The last thing that I was going to talk about, and then we can get into, I guess, unless anybody has questions about this part of it. Has anybody else used the data off of Sedgwick County to farm leads? Or any other county or Remine or Active Farm? I like that on Active Farm where you were saying that you can kind of see what the turnover is. Because to me, if you're going to be farming a neighborhood, which we'll get into in the future weeks, that's something you want to know. I mean, there's no point in marketing to a neighborhood that doesn't ever have any turnover or only one house sells every year. That's a total waste of money. So, all right, the last topic that we're going to get into tonight is just Zillow. So I know Julie has bought Zillow leads. Has anybody else on here ever bought Zillow leads? Okay, so I'm gonna kind of go over a high level of how Zillow works if you haven't. I know Zillow is, like I said on my quick video, it's the dreaded Zillow. All the agents hate their guts, and I understand that, and I had thought the same thing for a really long time. But the thing that I couldn't get out of my mind was every time we went to show a house, people are like, well, I looked up the value on Zillow. Or they would send me a link off of Zillow of the houses that they wanted to show. And so to me, I'm just like, well, they're here. We've already opened the door as realtors and we've been sold out, if you will, and they're already here. So if that's where everybody and all the eyeballs are at, then that's where I felt like I needed to be at. Now, one misconception that I had when I started doing Zillow is in my mind, I just assumed that everybody that was in a higher price point had already had a real estate agent connection. They'd already bought something and sold something with somebody, and they would just use that agent over and over again. And I read a stat, and if I remember the number right, 87% of people say that they would use their agent again when they're interviewed afterwards. But then, like, it's hardly any, it's less than 20%. If I'll look up the numbers and I'll post it in the page, but hardly any of them do. And why is that? It's because we didn't take care of them and stay in front of them long enough. So I was under the misconception that if I needed to buy this entry level Zillow lead in the cheapest zip codes. So when you're buying Zillow leads, you're paying for them based on the dollar figure of what those sales average for that zip code. So the more expensive zip codes, the leads are more expensive. So you're paying more a month. So I went into, if you're familiar with Wichita, 67211, so kind of a midtown, 67218. So I was in like that 125, and this was 8 or 9 years ago, $125,000 range. I sold 80 houses that year, and my average sales price was $115,000. So that sucks. So I started gradually increasing it. Now, like I'm in 67230 and it costs $400 or $500 literally every time my phone rings from Zillow. But that's okay. And as you have the skill set and you're comfortable having those higher level conversations, it's crazy to see how many people aren't using the same agent, are relocating in. I've had people that have never bought a house before and they're 50 and they're buying their first house. So I assumed wrong. and went cheap. Now, if you're a brand new agent, I still would go cheap. And the reason is you're going to burn through. It's going to take more leads for you to close one deal than it will for somebody that's seasoned. And so the other thing with it is a new buyer is going to not know anything about real estate. And guess what? As a new agent, you don't know much about real estate, but you pass the test. So you know more typically than the new buyer. So think about that as you're going into it, and think about where you want to be traveling. You don't want to advertise an hour and a half away if that's not the market that you want to be working in. Same thing goes with the Facebook ads. When you're doing the buy, sell, and trade, Josh isn't from here and he posted something in Winfield and I saw it and I texted him. I said, Josh, do you know how far Winfield is from your house? Oh shit, it's an hour. Like, yeah, delete it, pick something different, do over. So just something to think about as you're doing that. So when we get a Zillow call that comes in, the reason I like Zillow better than realtor.com is I am being live connected with a human on the phone. It's not realtor.com will call multiple agents at the same time, and it's whoever answers the phone the fastest that gets that lead. So Zillow does it on a rotation basis for all of the agents that are advertising in that zip code. So when they connect you, you have an app, they're going to tell you, hey, Julie wants to see 123 Main Street at 3 o'clock on Sunday. And then they ring you in and I answer the phone and I'm like, Julie? And she says, yes. I'm like, this is Lesley. I'm the Zillow Premier Agent in Wichita. They don't give a shit what company you work for. And I just tell them I'm in Wichita. That's really what they want to know. And they have no clue how Zillow works. So I want them to know that I'm local. And I'm like, Zillow just told me that you wanted to see 123 Main Street at 3 o'clock on Sunday. Is that correct? Yeah, great. Let me get a hold of the seller and let me make sure that that time works for them. Zillow gave me whatever their phone number is. Would you like me to call you or text you once I have it confirmed? 9 times out of 10, they want me to text them, which I appreciate because I would rather text anyway. So I always do that first. Now, several of you guys came in and were listening when Bobby and I did our NAR changes class a month ago. So what I do is I set the appointment first. I get the confirmation. Then I text them back. And I'm like, hey, Julie, we've got 3 o'clock confirmed at 123 Main Street on Sunday. Before we can go look at the house, there's been some national changes, and I'm going to have you sign a form for me to show you the property. Every real estate agent has to do it in every market. So what's a good email address that you want me to send this to? You're just going to click it and sign it and send it back, and then we'll be ready for Sunday at 3 o'clock. I haven't had a single person balk about it. Bobby was telling me what she does is she tells them up front and then says, once we receive it back for you, then we will book your appointment. I do it different. And the reason that I do it different, I'm not saying Bobby is wrong. I'm just giving you a rationale of what my thought process is with it. So these people don't know me. If I tell them that I'm going to get it confirmed and then I'm going to reach back out to them with a text, I already did what I said I'm going to do. So to me, you're already proving that you're doing what you say you're doing by confirming it with them. And then I'm sending them that just like I said I would, and then I get it back. And once they message it back to me, I'm like, hey, I received it. Looking forward to see you on Sunday. Here's my digital business card. You can save my number in the phone, and then you can follow me on social media if you'd like. I've got a lot of tips and tricks for buyers and sellers on there. That's my whole thing because I want them in my web. I want them in front of me on my social media, watching my videos. I don't want them going anywhere outside of me. So we get there to the house and I'm having a conversation with them pretty much as soon as we get there. I'm like, hey, I don't know how familiar you are with how the Zillow process works. And they're always like, no clue. Let me explain to you a little bit about it. So I am not the seller. That is not my name on the sign. The name on the sign basically has been hired to represent the seller to get the seller the best terms. Zillow is putting me in front of you so that you could have your own representation. So as we walk through the house, I want you to understand it's not my listing. It's not my personal house. I'm here to answer your questions and be of a benefit to you. And I'm going to point out the stuff that I like about it. And I'm going to point out the stuff that I find concerning about the house. And I'll answer any of your questions as we go along. So I point out the stuff that I like. I point out the stuff that I don't like or that's a concern to me, wood rot, missing shingles, whatever it is. And then I have a buyer presentation that I go through with them at the house. Zillow has told me, statistically proven, they've listened to thousands of phone calls, and the people that have the most success answering the Zillow calls are the ones that are in and off the phone as fast as humanly possible setting the appointment, because they don't want to have a whole conversation with you. They don't want pre-qualified over the phone. All they want to do is get inside the house. So the more excited you can seem and the faster you can get it done, the better. And that's where you're going to have a high success rate, getting face-to-face meetings. Then once you're there, you have to give them your buyer proposition and show them why they want to work with you. So I go through I have a whole presentation that I go through. It's in a little binder, and I'm happy to share that. The people that are at Real, I've already posted it on our page, and you can go into my Canva and modify it if you want. But I go through that with them, and I'm like, so, and I'm having questions, or I'm asking questions as I'm going through it. I'm like, have you ever bought and sold a house before? And a lot of times they're like, no, or it's been a while. Okay, let me give you a quick refresher. Let me walk you through the process. And so I tell them, so first of all, you're going to meet with a real estate agent. Guess what? Here we are and we're meeting. And second of all, it's getting a lender. So I don't know if you guys are going to be paying cash or if you guys are going to be getting a loan. And I don't judge it. I don't care if they look 12. I still say, I don't know if you're going to be paying cash or if you want financing. But the next step, if you are getting financing, is going to be to meet with a lender. And it's not a matter of whether you qualify. It's a matter of if the house qualifies for the loan that you're qualified for. And I basically put it off on the house. And then the thing that's nice about that roadmap that we have in our buyer guides is it tells them, it sets the precedence. This is the next step in our process. So when they send me 30 other houses that they want to go look at, hey, we're jumping the gun. We've got to get through number 2 on the roadmap. And a lot of times what I've been working on, and it's working really, really well over the last couple months, is I'm just like, when's a good time for me to have a lender call you and answer your lending questions? And I just automatically connect them. And I have Chris or whoever the lender is that I think is best suited for that person contacting them instead of sitting around waiting for them to contact Chris. So it just seems like it's happening faster. I'm getting better results. They're having conversations. We're getting them to credit repair specialists faster. So they're churning and they're now showing up in my database of buyers faster. So the next thing I think is super important is after meeting that Zillow lead is I friend request them on social media if I haven't already, because I want them again in my web. I want them to see my name over and over and to see that I do this daily and then I'm selling stuff and I'm listing stuff and then I'm a professional. The next thing is we set up a search forum on MLS, and something that's a little bit different. I send it to myself because I want it to look like I'm texting it to them, and I want to preview it because sometimes people are like, I want an open floor plan, or I hate galley kitchens. So if you just set it up, those are things that we don't have check marks for in MLS. And so then it doesn't look like I listened to them if I'm sending them a galley kitchen or if I'm sending them something that's not open. So I send it to me, and then I text them my link from my website or from our MLS website, but do not ever send them the Zillow links. And the reason why, and that goes back to the first thing that we were talking about Marketplace, is now that you know that there's agents that are advertising in those zip codes, if you post that link off of Zillow and they click schedule a showing, it's going to those agents. It's not going to you. So do not send them to another agent. Keep them in your realm. So I send them stuff that is linked to me. And then also, just like Cynthia was saying, I know Wichita, we have Forewarn. We go on there, we look them up. I find out their mailing address. I send them a thank you note. Hey, it was great to meet you. That's why these cards are so great, because they're super generic. There's nothing on them, thank you or anything. It just says hello. So I just sent them something. Hello, it was really nice to meet you. I look forward to helping you in your home buying journey. You know, here's a couple of my business cards. I look forward to talking to you soon. It's not rocket science. It's super simple stuff, but it just looks like you care and you're staying on top of dealing with them. And so the next things you're going to do on Zillow that are super important is you're going to update the status of that buyer, because there's different statuses on Zillow, and it goes from you connected with them to you scheduled an appointment, you're showing houses, you're under contract, and you've closed. And the reasons those are important is Zillow is tracking it so that they can use you as an example to sell future business, but then they give you best of Zillow status. So it's just something you can advertise. It's something that it shows up on your Zillow profile as people are looking at you and getting reviews. If you use Zillow as a lead generation tool and you're paying for it, make sure you're getting reviews on Zillow. Super duper important. The last thing that you're going to want to do after you've met with them is send them something. Zillow has a link that you can send them something saying that they're confirming that you're working with them. And it's important that you get them that and they confirm it, because you're the only agent that they see on Zillow for the next 12 months. So at that point, I can send them Zillow links because it's not sending them to anyone else. So that's kind of how pulling the curtains back from Zillow works and how my process works with Zillow. But it's insane the amount of business that really just the ROI that I get off of Zillow, because I read through all of the forums all the time and people are like, not effective, waste of money, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, I way more. I mean, it's like 3 to 4 times what I spend on Zillow is what my return is. So, and even if I can't, like, I never try to reschedule whatever it is. If Julie wanted to see that house at 3 o'clock on Sunday and I'm not available, I'm going to text David and say, David, are you available to work with a new Zillow lead for a 25% referral at 3 o'clock on Sunday? And then I text them back and I'm like, hey, Lesley again, Zillow Premier Agent here in Wichita. David Van Dyke is going to be the one that's coming out to meet you at 3 o'clock on Sunday. It is confirmed, blah, blah, blah. Here's his contact information. And I've shared yours with him. And it just seems seamless. They don't know if I'm an agent. They don't know anything about me. We haven't had that in-depth conversation. So I just pass it along and then I collect a referral fee from our crew, and I can still cover my monthly spend, typically with a referral fee that I'm getting each month from Zillow. So I just don't ever want it to look like I'm not available. So whatever time they put in, that's the time that I'm aiming for. So I got it done in an hour. That's pretty shocking for me because usually I'm really wordy. Does anybody have any questions about Zillow or anything else that we've yacked about tonight so I can answer it? And anything new you learned that you didn't already know? Nothing. This is going to be, I videoed it, so we're going to have it on the real group. So like Cynthia, where you came in a little late, all the first stuff's going to be on there too. So, and then every Thursday night at 8, I'm going to start going through this and picking 3 different topics like we talked about in the beginning. One that's free, one that has a little bit of a spin to it, and then one that is a little bit more expensive. So you're welcome, guys.
So that if you're doing it at 8, it'll be 6
Clock your
o'clock.
time.
6 o'clock my time. Okay, all right. Sorry, I'm a little late. We had a finger severance issue. Had to band-aid that finger back together.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's not an excuse to hear all the time. So
Man in their tools. I'll watch the video though. I will watch the rerun.
Sounds good. And then the other thing that I'm going to work on you know, not every one of these is going to be my dance move that I do at a very high level. Like I'll tell you, we're going to talk about in the coming weeks, one of the topics for the expensive spend is going to be client appreciation parties. Bobby rocks that. Bobby can talk about that all day long. She does one every single month. There's a reason she does 100 deals a year. It's not because she's not out working her ass off. So she's hustling. So as we're doing this, I've got another agent out of New York that I'm friends with, and I want her to talk about some different ways that she volunteers and how she brings it into her marketing and things like that. So there's going to be some different things that I'm not going to be the full voice of every single week. I want to highlight people that are doing things at a high level under each one of these things. And we'll go from there. So if you guys have a topic that you're curious about, message me and we'll work on getting it on the schedule. So until then, go sell lots of houses and have a good night. Bye, guys.
Thanks.